Hey, it's Kyle Madson with your top stories on Sports 1140. The Texans beat the Dolphins last night 42-23 thanks to 5 touchdowns from quarterback Deshaun Watson. One of those touchdowns went to wide receiver Will Fuller, who NFL Network's Ian Rappaport is reporting tore his ACL during the game. The Texans have now won 5 games in a row. They are 5-3, while the Dolphins fall to 4-4.
Yeah.
The Red Sox are looking to take a 3-0 lead in the World Series. Game 3 is tonight in Los Angeles. Rick Porcello heads to the mound for Boston against Walker Buehler of the Dodgers.
Has to pee. That's why he screwed his update up.
The Kings play tonight.
I'm not letting you go to work today.
Wait, what? Everybody, listen up. Welcome to The Drive.
Morning.
You're going to talk. Get on the phone at 339-1140.
Pretty awesome, huh?
Jump in on our text line at 441140.
Everyone is talking about it. You must know that.
The Drive starts now.
Dave Richard will join us next. Kyle's turning bright red. He's got to
I'm
get
going
Dave
Booger McFarland right now, Dave.
He's got to get Dave Richard on the phone, and then you will not be hearing from Kyle Madson for a while. Ben Gumpert will join us at 8:35. While Kyle gets Mr. Richard there, a couple things. A lot of people on the text line. I'll pick a couple. Hot take cannon here. Hot take cannon time. Guys, we're talking about scary movies. I'll say this, and I know I'm going to lose the last couple people that like me, but I think The Exorcist is one of the more overrated horror movies ever. I said it. I know. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think that it's not scary. I think it is scary. I think it's a good movie. And I think it is a good, scary movie. But, man, the amount of lists that The Exorcist is at the top of when it comes to horror movies, I would say The Exorcist is at best like 25th. As far as movies that truly scared me. Yeah, the girl, her head spins around and pea soup flies everywhere. And, you know, she says some bad words. And, yes, it gets eerie. It's eerie. That movie is eerie. And I'm not, it's not a slasher movie. I'm not a slasher movie guy. Like all the Saws and stuff. Get out of here. I think that's lazy. It's like zombies to me. Oh, okay, some guy got his leg cut off. No, I like the ones like The Shining, the ones that just your hair is up on your neck. The Ring. What is that one with Sarah Michelle Gellar? I always forget about. They were in Japan. I forget the name of that movie. You know what I'm talking about. Freaks me. Those movies are scary to me when I hear a crack in the stairs over the next day, and freaks me out. When I back up my car in that little black and white rear view camera in the dark with the infrared light, and I'm looking through that and I'm worried that like some monster's going to show up in the background. Hell, Poltergeist was scarier to me than The Exorcist. From the 209, what's his name? Anton, whatever the hell his name is. No Country for Old Men. The guy with the weird haircut. Not really a horror movie, but terrifying. Here's another hot take. I thought that movie was trash. I mean, that movie I actually absolutely hated. Like 90% of Coen Brothers movies. That whole movie. Well acted. Great cinematography. The Grudge. Thank you. That's the Sarah Michelle Gellar movie. Great cinematography. Great acting. Your main character, the Brolin kid, dies off scene. I don't really even know how the movie wrapped up, like most Coen Brothers movies. It's all about art. And, it's a great-looking movie, and the acting's great. But in the end, I walk out, and I'm like, what? I don't know what did I just watch for 2+ hours? I have no idea. This guy has an air gun? Okay. That movie sucked. Sorry. There are a couple Coen Brothers movies that I really enjoy. Most of them, I feel like they're trying to win an art house award. Well, good, you did it. That's fine. Give me Star Wars. Give me that. NostraDumbass is, oh my God, Dave Richard's on the line. Joining us right now from CBS Sports.com. Who absolutely did not need to hear all of that. I just didn't know he was on line 6. I was actually vamping until Kyle came back to get Dave Richard on. I didn't see that line was up. The one, the only Dave Richard. Hello, Dave. How are you?
I'm with you, by the way. Your movie take is good with me. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Yeah. Way into that, and like I was kind of into Saw when Saw was like a big deal. But I'm usually not a horror flick, thrasher flick kind of dude.
But did Saw Saw was something like when you're younger and you go to the movie theater with a bunch of your friends and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's so gross!" But did Saw do you put that on your list of movies that actually scared you?
No, I was like fascinated by it. Like I just thought it was an interesting premise, and I'm never like, freaked out by weird injuries or anything like that, and blood and guts don't make me want to, cringe or anything like that. Not to, tout me being a badass or anything, but it's just I've never been like that. So I've never really been into like those scary types of movies, but I do watch a lot of bad football.
Well, we saw finally as we segue in here, some good football last night out of Deshaun Watson. It's funny, earlier in the week, somebody tried to trade me Deshaun Watson. I already had Aaron Rodgers. I said no, and was on the guy's bench I was playing, thank God. And I think there were probably a decent amount of fantasy owners out there that were getting frustrated with Watson, who's up one, down one, and was nothing like he was last year. Do you think this is a one-time thing because of matchup, or does Deshaun Watson all of a sudden shoot up your quarterback rankings?
Well, I think we're seeing some building blocks from Deshaun Watson. First and foremost, he played against Miami, and that defense had no clue what they were doing, certainly on the long touchdown to Will Fuller, the long touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins. And as long as Watson's got DeAndre Hopkins to throw to, I think he's going to have a chance to be a good fantasy quarterback. What was missing from this game, and this is why I didn't want to start him this week, was I knew he wouldn't have great passing volume. I didn't think he would throw a lot. He entered this game with 25 or fewer pass attempts in his last two, and he only attempted 20 passes in this game, and he also wasn't running the ball as much as he did earlier in the season. So maybe as he gets healthier and his chest feels a lot better, he'll run a little bit more. He'll certainly he's going to throw a little more when there's games that the Texans are trailing in. But their defense is starting to play a lot better. That offensive line started the season as a mess. They made one little change, and it's actually done wonders for them. The last couple of weeks, they've had a respectable offensive line. That's going to help. That's helped their running game come back into place. I think Watson's going to be an okay starter. It's just a matter of who he plays against. And last week it was easy to get away from him. This week you thought, he's probably not going to have to run that much. And as it turns out, he only needed 20 pass attempts, and he threw 5 touchdowns. That will be rare. But games with him having 250 yards and 2 touchdowns with 20, 30 rush yards on top of it, Dave, I think those can come back pretty quickly.
All right, so then a triple dip question here for you, and we'll be done with the Dolphins and Texans. So number one, both Kenyon Drake and Lamar Miller, especially compared to their years so far, had great games last night. And then also Will Fuller being out. I mean, you hate to talk about it this way, but with Will Fuller being out, I would imagine obviously DeAndre Hopkins' value, which is already high, goes higher. But is there, are you looking at QT with that injury? What does that do, and who should people be picking up if they had Fuller?
I think QT is the obvious guy to go and get. It's just a matter of how he'll play when he does come back, whenever that is. That could be after their bye week, which is in week 10. And their schedule actually isn't terrible after he comes back. It's actually pretty good for the most part. So QT would probably have to play a little bit more on the outside. He'd been playing in the slot before. He'll have some up and down weeks. He'll help Deshaun Watson out a little bit. But I don't really think there's another receiver or a tight end or anything like that that's going to suddenly come to the forefront. Maybe this Jordan
Thomas,
I think is his name. Yeah. That could end up being a decent factor for them. We'll see. That's something the Texans are going to have to fiddle with next week, and then they have like a mini bye this week, and then they've got their real bye, like I said, in week 10. As for the running backs, I feel like we got a little lucky with Kenyon Drake. He had a great game, but still only 12 carries. I thought he'd have way more catches. He only had 2. I thought he'd have 6 or 7 grabs in the game. And eventually the Dolphins are going to realize, look, he's a playmaker. Let's give him more opportunities to make plays. Certainly as the season goes on, I think you'll see that from Drake. And with Miller, I don't think he's a dynamic running back anymore, but he's getting good volume and he's finding the end zone. That offensive line, like I talked about, is getting a little bit better. So he's somebody who you look at as a number 2 guy moving forward.
Dave Richard joining us from CBSSports.com. You can check out all his fantasy action, not only there, but several other places we'll get to here before we get off the phone with Dave. Also his Twitter account as well that you should be following, 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. If you have questions for Dave, I'll get on the text line here real quick. Cole Beasley, PPR league, your thoughts? Somebody's wondering whether or not they should be starting him.
Well, this is a bad week to start him because he's on bye.
That's
so
a
I would
great
try
point.
and get away from Cole Beasley.
Yeah, I would sit him.
Yeah, I think he's going to get you as many points as Kyle's going to get people.
You know what we should have done? We should have said he's a must start just for the guy asking the
Hey,
question.
I am a savvy route runner and have great hands.
Which team are you on? Which the Texans might be calling after losing Will Fuller. Look, and maybe the Raiders too after trading away Amari Cooper. I think he's going to be very hit or miss. We know that Amari Cooper is now part of that passing game.
Right.
He's certainly going to warrant some targets from week to week. Whether or not they'll be consistent, I'm not sure. And that just goes double for Cole Beasley. He's already had inconsistent targets this season. I would imagine that'll continue to be the case.
Struggling to fill my RB2 spot this week. It's down to Carlos Hyde, Royce Freeman, or Matt Breida, assuming he plays.
Yeah, it's going to end up being Hyde because I don't expect Breida to play, and as of now, I don't think Royce Freeman's going to play. If Freeman did play, I would probably take a chance on him over Hyde, but that's a matter of him. He would have to practice, and coaches are going to have to come out later today and say, oh, yeah, he's going to be just fine, get him out there and play. But Phillip Lindsay has really taken control of that backfield. He's looked a lot better. Maybe the goal line is the only spot that he hasn't totally stolen from Royce Freeman, but Lindsay's looked good, and I would expect him to catch a bunch of passes this week, as well as leading the Broncos in carries. Hyde, I think by default, is who that guy's going to have to start, and I feel terrible for him.
Jared Goff or Aaron Rodgers?
I like them both this week, but I think Rodgers has the higher upside. We've seen him put up great fantasy points in his last couple of games, and now his receiving core is healthy. He's got Geronimo Allison back. Randall Cobb will be there, and that's on top of the guys that he's had all along, which is Devontae Adams, Jimmy Graham, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And I would imagine this is going to be a high-scoring game. Don't think this is going to be one where the Packers decide, all right, let's run the ball 35 times. I think the Rams would have to give the ball away quite a bit in order for that to happen.
I'm getting a lot of questions like Kirk Cousins or Pat Mahomes. I'll shorten it up. I'm getting a lot of this guy or Pat Mahomes. If you have Pat Mahomes, are you pretty much starting him every week no matter what?
I don't have a reason to sit Pat Mahomes for anybody at this point. He's the number one quarterback in fantasy. He's putting up ridiculous numbers. You want to know when to sit him, Dave?
Bye week.
Week 12.
Week 12 is the week to sit him?
That's the only time I see.
Yeah. That's
I think you're just getting too cute by, going with somebody else over him at this point.
I think so too. I mean, at this point, the guy's a must start, and of course, he'll have a whatever week at some point, you would think. But then you look at it's so funny. You look at guys like Aaron Rodgers. We talked about Jared Goff. Tom Brady, even Andrew Luck being back in the fray. I know Mahomes is probably the most surprising when it comes to people didn't expect him to do that. But other than him, who's the guy you look at and go, God, I did not expect this out of him at quarterback?
I didn't expect Mitchell Trubisky to be playing as well as he's been playing the last 3 weeks, over 300 yards and at least 3 total touchdowns each of his last 3 games. He's been playing great. He has certainly fit into that scheme that's built in Chicago, and he's got a lot of playmakers around him. And I'll be honest, I wasn't crazy about Jared Goff coming into the year, but he's made some really ridiculous plays. His scheme has certainly benefited him, and he's surrounded by better talent than Trubisky is. So those two guys are pretty much, at this point, guys you ride with in fantasy until they fall off.
Dave Richard with us. I don't know if we've taken a defense question all year. Here we go. The Jacksonville Jaguars were the first defense and only defense I drafted. They've given up 90 points in the last 3 weeks. Is it time for me to give up on them?
It depends on who you're giving up on them for. If you're going to your waiver wire and you're going to pick up the Steelers or maybe the Redskins, and I don't even know if that's a great one, the Seahawks, Cardinals, Colts maybe. If they're out there, you could go in that direction. But I think Jacksonville will eventually figure it out and rebound. I don't know if this is going to be the week they're without several starters, and then they're on bye the week after that. So if you're going to carry the Jaguars on your fantasy roster, you've got to make sure that you're committed to them beyond this week and next week, because I don't know if you're going to want to trust them this week. I don't think they'll be great. I think they'll be just okay. And then next week, the bye. You're not going to get anything out of them.
Hello, Dave Richard. This from the 916. I'm in trouble between injuries and buys. Is Doug Martin a guy I should start in desperation?
That is the exact word to use when describing Doug Martin, is desperation. If you are desperate for a running back, you can't find other guys off the waiver wire, then sure, you go with him. But right across the bay in San Francisco, they've unearthed Raheem Mostert, and I think that he could end up being a better fantasy option. Let's put it this way. He's got the much better chance to get close to 100 yards than Doug Martin does. John Gruden's talking a big game about Doug Martin being this, feature back, what have you. Jalen Richard's going to have a piece of that pie, and Oakland's going to be trailing in this game against the Colts. So I don't see Doug Martin being anything more than a touchdown needy fantasy running back. I would try and get away from him.
A lot of questions about Le'Veon Bell, who's still up in the air, and the questions aren't obviously should we start or sit him. The questions are all based around, if I'm getting offers for him, what do I do?
Depends on the offers.
Yeah.
If they're real crappy, then you're going to say no. And at this point, what do you have to lose by you've held on to Le'Veon Bell through the first 7 weeks of the season. It's going to be 8 weeks in a couple of days. What's the point? If you're trading him away and you're only going to get Alex Collins and D.D. Westbrook,
right?
How's that helping your team get better? You want somebody that will actually help your team get better, and that's what I would look to do if I'm 3-4, 2-5, and I've got Le'Veon Bell on my bench, and I need to start winning games now. I'll trade him for a starter. That's all I need is a guy that I feel like I can start every week. Now, if somebody's going to be a schmo and give me a Joe Mixon or Kenny Golladay, if we even want to lower the standards a little bit more, straight up for Le'Veon Bell, then I'll do it. But I wouldn't give up a player of a decent starting, call it a top 20 player at any position, running back, wide receiver, straight up for Le'Veon Bell. I wouldn't do that because I don't know when he's going to come back. I don't know how effective he'll be. I don't know how much he'll play.
This is coming across the Jiffy Lube text line here, which is interesting because I have the exact same conundrum. Are you? Is Kenyon Barner worth a start at all?
Okay, that's in the desperation category. Again, what are you expecting here? I agree that the Patriots are probably going to blow out the Bills, but is it going to be Kenyon Drake getting a bunch of garbage time? And if he is he going to get a touchdown? I think it's hard to believe that he'll be any better than about 60 or 70 yards. But I do think he'll have the opportunity to get you 10, 12 carries in the game against Buffalo. What he does with it, who knows?
From the 916, Dave, I traded Tyreek and Marlon Mack for David Johnson and Stephon Diggs. How did I do?
You did great. Diggs hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, but he will eventually turn it around. Although I think Adam Thielen's going to keep this up all year. He's just been outstanding. Kirk Cousins has been on the same page with him. They've been a great combination. And you got to buy into Arizona turning things around now that Mike McCoy's gone. Byron Leftwich is the new offensive coordinator. And I would imagine that Leftwich will find interesting and new and exciting ways, i.e. ways that we saw in 2016 on how to use David Johnson.
Big Ben or Jameis Winston?
I will go with Winston over Roethlisberger this week.
And finally, and again, sometimes I see a lot of questions and I try to put them into one here. Basically, Dave, a lot of questions this morning about Alvin Kamara and Ingram. And we saw Ingram come back and take the load. Then Kamara came back last week and had a great week. Is this something owners should be expecting week to week with the Saints?
To a degree. I still think that Kamara is the best running back of the two, and Ingram will probably be a little bit more touchdown dependent of the two. But Kamara, I love his matchup this week against Minnesota. We've seen playmakers do very well against those linebackers for the Vikings, and even one of their not-so-great linebackers, Anthony Barr, I guess he'd been playing well the past couple of weeks. He's been missing in action in practice, might not play in the game. I would assume that Kamara will be a big part of the game plan for the Saints. And if they build a big lead on the Vikings, then Ingram will have a chance to grind out some clock. And if they get near the goal line, Ingram will get involved there.
All right, I lied because this guy's pretty desperate. I got to have you answer this question. 12-team, half a point per reception trade proposal. He would receive Tyreek Hill, and he includes in parentheses that Pat Mahomes is his quarterback. he would send Alshon Jeffrey and John Connor.
James Conner.
Or what did I say? John Connor from Terminator.
Right.
Yes. He would actually
Speaking of exciting movies that are fun.
Yeah, and James Conner.
James, I think if you're totally loaded at running back, and James Conner was the guy that you drafted with one of your last picks, you can make that deal. But I think you're giving up a lot for Tyreek Hill there. So I would probably just on the surface in a vacuum say no way.
Yeah.
But if this is the same guy that's got Todd Gurley and insert another great running
Kareem
back,
Hunt, whoever, Kamara. Yeah.
Right. So I mean I don't know how you've got Gurley, Hunt, and Kamara, or two of those three on the same team. But maybe it's Joe Mixon. Maybe it's Tariq Cohen and another guy. Then you go ahead and you do it.
And I'll leave you with this, Dave, because we've had this guy, about 2-3 times a season, we'll get into some fantasy philosophy stuff. And I know we've talked about this before. When it comes to, he included the fact that he has Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. And I know a lot of people sometimes will alter their draft, maybe a pick or two, because they like the connection. And I just want to ask you again, are you somebody that looks at quarterback receiver connections when you're drafting, when you're playing, or does it not matter to you?
It typically doesn't matter to me. I always like to have great players on my team, and whether or not I've got players that are teammates on my team, that's fine. But it's not something that I look for. One of the problems with it is, obviously, you can start Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes on the same team, and Mahomes can have a great game, and Tyreek Hill could have nothing. But if Mahomes goes down and you've got Tyreek Hill, well, the replacement's going to be Chad Henne, and suddenly Tyreek Hill doesn't look so good for fantasy. So you're kind of spreading the wealth a little bit by not having multiple guys from the same team, and certainly the quarterback-receiver connection. But if it's draft day or if it's a trade and it just so happens that it makes sense for your team to take two guys from the same squad, then I wouldn't shy away from it then either. I would just be very vigilant about how I would go about the rest of my roster setting.
I think you and I have always agreed on that. A lot of people get into those connections, and yeah, it's great to see Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton connect and see your points scroll up super fast. But like you said, evaluate each individual player. If it's the right place to draft that guy, draft that guy. But in the end, I agree with you, man. You put all your eggs in that basket. Somebody goes down, you have some sort of freak shutout or 10-point game, you're screwed for the week.
Absolutely. I think that's far more valuable in daily fantasy play when you're playing on one of the one-week fantasy sites.
Sure.
You can take a quarterback and a receiver from the same team, maybe even two receivers from the same team, and you kind of hope that the ball falls their way.
Dave Richard is a dad, a husband, and a writer. It's what it says in his bio, by the way. Also a member of CBS Sports and CBS Sports HQ. Chicagoan, Hurricane, pizza eater, which would be amazing if there was a Chicago Hurricane pizza. Dave, where else can people listen, hear, and view you?
Well, in 30 minutes, I'll be on CBS Sports HQ breaking down that game from last night and talking more about the future of the Texans and the Dolphins. We're also going to get into a lot of daily fantasy lineup discussion, guys that are good to have in your lineup, guys that are not so good. And, of course, we'll go with risers and fallers, players that have moved up or down in our rankings over the past week. So bottom line is this: if you're a diehard fantasy player and you want to get a little bit of advice, maybe get a leg up on everybody in your league, go to CBSSportsHQ.com and stream fantasy football today. It'll start live at 9 a.m. out there in California.
We got a break, and I know you got something to go to, but I can't let you leave without this. Dave, when you're looking at facial hair and you think of the term goatee, in your opinion, is a goatee simply hair on the chin only? Or can a goatee be the mustache connecting to the goatee, which some people call a circle beard?
Yeah, I think you need to have the whole thing.
You need to have.
It's got to include the sides running down the mouth.
So to you, a goatee can be mustache, sides, and chin hair?
Correct. Right.
Okay.
The circle beard as you described.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you weighing in on that. I hope you don't get that question all day today.
I probably will now. Thanks
to you. You will. All right, buddy. Take care. Thank you.
Later, Dave.
Bye. That's the very wrong Dave Richard from CBSSports.com. Great at fantasy football advice, terrible at facial hair advice. Let that be a lesson to all of you. Never ask a fantasy football expert about facial hair. When we come back, the president of the Sacramento Republic, Ben Gumpert, who's a Stanford graduate, I'll have him weigh in on that too. And then we'll have 3 opinions from 3 experts. Well, 2 experts and Dave Richard. It's The Drive. We're back in a couple. Sports 1140 KHTK.
Hey, it's Kyle Madson with your top stories on Sports 1140. The Texans beat the Dolphins 42-23 last night in Houston to kick off Week 8 of the NFL season. Game 3 of the World Series is tonight in Los Angeles with the Red Sox leading that series 2-0. They send Rick Porcello to the mound against Walker Buehler for the Dodgers. In the NBA, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting that the Rockets are prepared to offer 4 first-round picks with limited protections as part of a trade package for Timberwolves forward Jimmy Butler, so we'll keep an eye on that developing story. And the Kings are back in action tonight after a night off last night. They're home against the Washington Wizards, who come in with a 1-3 record. Our coverage on Sports 1140 begins with game night at 5:30, Kings live at 6:30, and tip-off, which is set for 7 o'clock. Those are your top stories, and now it's back to The Drive on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Here we go. The Drive continues now.
Meow. Meow. There's some Jagamahoney on the text line complaining about our break time. Welcome back. Now it's time for a break. Implying that we have too many commercials. Hey, doofus, that was a 24-minute segment we just had. 24 minutes straight with
we
no
went
commercials.
long.
And we took, let me look. I got it right here. We did a 24-minute segment, and then before that, we had a 4-minute break that was preceded by a 25-minute segment. So we have had 49 minutes of segmenting with 7 minutes of breaks. That's pretty, gall dang good.
Hey, I have stuff to give away, and I want to do that before we get to Ben Gumpert.
Okay. Do that right now.
I'm going to.
Okay,
Tell
fine.
me I won't.
Fine.
Hey, we've got $50 gift card to Islands. Try out Islands Roseville across from Sunsplash Water Park on the corner of Taylor and Roseville Parkway, and Islands Folsom located on Iron Point Road in front of Best Buy. All KHTK giveaways are powered by RosevilleAutomall.com. I got a bunch of these to give away, 3 to be exact. I'm going to give away 2 right now. Callers number 3 and 4 will get a $50 gift card to Islands Fine Burgers and Drinks.
Maybe a little news update here before we get to Ben Gumpert. We spoke about this when this was happening earlier in the week, and obviously we're all sports fans and we come here for an escape, but we also pay attention to the real world as well. And when something big happens in the real world, we're going to break in. We're going to tell you about it. According to several reports, the person that has been sending those mail bombs to several different figures, including the Presidents Clinton, Obama, and many, many others. According to many news sources, the feds have made an arrest in that case. So more on that, I'm sure, throughout the day. And I'm sure reaction will be calm and measured all the way around. But that is, if that's the guy, very, 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 very good news. 339-1140, 44-1140. NostraDumbass coming up in just about 15 minutes after we talk to Ben Gumpert. Want to remind you, too, all guests come to you via the Fire Wings hotline. 21 different flavors to choose from. Kyle has tried them all. I'm very proud of him for that. Firewings.com, just wing it. Also want to get to the sound Shaq last night on the TNT broadcast, talking about Vlade once again, just making us proud that he is a member of this ownership group. It's actually not a big deal. I will never be okay with Shaq being a part owner of this team. I don't care if he owns a half of 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 a percent. Take that 0.5% and give it to Mark Olberty. Give it to Walt Williams. All right. Give it to I don't know, one of 90 different kings I can think of. Past, present, don't care. Not Shaq, please. We also need to talk about Jimmy Butler. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Rockets and Daryl Morey. Hey, by the way, Kyle, I tried to direct message Daryl Morey yesterday just on a whim to see if the report was accurate. Guess what he said? I've got it. When I asked Daryl Morey on Twitter via private message whether or not that was actually a for real offer, he said this to me. Yeah, I didn't get a response, which I'm not really surprised. You can't really say anything at that point. It wouldn't behoove him to do that. I completely believe it, though. I completely believe it.
I bet you were the only person who asked, too.
I'll bet you he got no other messages from anyone. So one of our texters, who's normally a total moron, but I'll give it to him. This is actually a good question. He said, what king would you trade for those 4 draft picks? I will switch that question around because I think the better question is, what king wouldn't you trade for 4 first-round draft picks? I mean, seriously, what king would you not trade? And I know it's going to be tough here not to use a homer bias, and I know we're dealing with a fan base of which I'm a member of that is really tired of building and rebuilding and rebuilding. So that makes this very difficult. But I think maybe that list is limited to De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley. Would you not trade 4 first-round draft picks for Harry Giles? I mean, that would probably be the next toughest one. Bogdanovic? That would be a tough one. Yeah, I don't know. 4 first-round draft picks. Now, I understand it's the Rockets, and I understand that those draft picks are likely going to be in the low to mid-20s at best. You might get lucky in the future. I think they're looking at 19, 21, 23, and 25, is it? Because you can't go 2 in a row. That's the Stepien rule. But not only would I look at that for the picks, I'd look at that for the value of being able to flip those picks to other teams. I would also ask that all 4 of those picks are unprotected. Minnesota has to make the deal if that's real, unless those are all protected like plus 25 or 20. I think even if the Rockets put top 3 protections on them, I think if you're Minnesota and you know Jimmy Butler is leaving, you have to make that. You're not getting a better deal. Joining us right now, President of your Sacramento Republic, good friend of ours, good friend of the show, the one, the only Benjamin Gumpert. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Dave. Good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just excited to talk to you, even though it's just had an end to our playoffs. You know, sometimes I felt you were only talking to me just so you can get free tickets, but now I know that it's a true friendship.
That's true, because I can't get those free tickets now until next season, and that makes me very sad. And we'll get to that in just a second. Before, though, one of the reasons I did want to talk to you, Ben, you went to Stanford. You're a very smart person. You've worked for the NBA. You're the president of a big soccer team.
Went to Rio Marcano High School,
home of the Raiders. Right there. When you hear the term goatee, do you consider a goatee chin hair only, or do you consider the mustache connecting to the goatee, sometimes called a circle beard? Does that count as a goatee to you as well?
Absolutely. I think in some respects that is the original goatee, is to have the entire circle completed.
You know, according to Gillette, you're correct, but according to Wikipedia and several other sources, the goatee was originally just chin hair like a goat, and then as modern times have evolved, we have turned the mustache and goatee into a goatee. I'm losing this argument.
Right. I think sometimes evolution is important, and even in its origins, if those are correct, which would make sense, I think we all have to understand that the times do and always will change, and so adaptability, I would think, is important, and I think that's something you need to take to heart, Dave, as you continue on.
Ben Gumpert speaking truth, even though it's tough to hear right now on the program. Speaking of truth that's tough to hear, we wanted, and I think really deep down expected, though you never take it for granted, to be talking about round 2 of the playoffs this weekend. I believe it would have been, if I'm correct, Phoenix visiting Papa Murphy's Park. That did not happen, and that is sports, and things don't always go the way that we want them to go. Ben, I'm not going to ask you what happened, because we all saw it and we know what happened, but as disappointed as you are, I would imagine you guys are already back to the drawing board.
Oh, very, very much so. The work for preparation, started the next day, and in many ways is always ongoing. We're not doing our job. I'm not doing my job, unless we're always thinking about ways to get better for next season, regardless of what happens, and regardless of how far we go. But yeah, it certainly stings. It still does, and it will for a while. We'll make it serve as motivation for next year for all of us, especially our players who take everything to heart. It was certainly, as the days go by and we have a little bit of time for the sting to dissipate at least a tiny bit, you sort of reflect on the whole season and understand what a success it was in so many ways. To finish second in a conference of 17 teams, to do so with a brand new coach, a brand new coaching staff, a brand new GM, more than 60% new players, and the way they gelled and came together is truly unbelievable. Had an amazing match, amazing run during the U.S. Open Cup, gave LAFC a run, but still, did it solve for everything we wanted? Absolutely not. It's a disappointing end. And we need to learn, get better, and march forward.
Am I correct in assuming here that, as painful as the loss was, if we are talking at the start of next season and looking back on the months between last week and the beginning of the new year, you guys have another championship now you're focusing on, and that's probably a pretty easy trade-off if you get one over the other?
Absolutely, and I don't love trade-offs, and me and Dave. I would love to get everything, but certainly our focus continues to be, and that hasn't remained unchanged. And if anything, like you said, it sort of redoubles around securing the MLS bid, a bid that we all know the city deserves, the fan base deserves, and the fan base has merit, and the city has merit, and we've continued to make progress. Mayor Steinberg has been fantastic, working with city council, working with the corporate community, working to build that brand new stadium right in the heart of rail yards, on the front porch of the city, which we all know would do so much for the city, far beyond soccer fans, far beyond even just fans of the stadium. But to talk about the next generation of growth in the city, that's where it's going to come. So we can be more excited to continue to carry that flag. Not a minute goes by where we're not focused on how to make this happen. And as I spoke with you, I think a few weeks ago, we're continuing to make progress. It's a complex beast, as everyone knows, but that doesn't deter us by any means. And we feel as confident as ever that this gets done, and this gets done in the short term.
Ben Gumpert, president of the Sac Republic, with us. I'm going to give you a couple on-the-spot questions, but only because I'm pretty darn sure you know the answers. You mentioned in there, and I know we've had this conversation a while back, you said that a downtown rail yard stadium will do so much more for that area than just soccer fans. When you say that, could you give me a couple examples?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the stadium itself, this needs to be a civic property. This is going to house, of course, matches for our beloved Republic, and hopefully more playoff matches in the future in MLS. But we want to have U.S. national team qualifying games there, men's and women's. We want to have other friendly matches. Some of the biggest clubs around the world can come play. We want to have football games, and I'm talking American football. We can have lacrosse. We've had rugby. We've had conversations on all those. And then, of course, one thing we all love about Sacramento is our 300 days of sun a year. That makes for outdoor concert venues a fantastic background Unfortunately, in Sacramento, we don't have that. Certainly in our core within 20 miles of our city, and certainly not right in our downtown core. This would be an unbelievable outdoor concert venue experience that would couple with the amazing indoor and in-arena experience that Golden One has provided, which we all love. Not to mention farmers markets and opening up our stadium for and doing partnerships that we've already started to talk about with gyms and health clubs so that everyone has access to it. That is the mission and that is the goal. Not to mention the surrounding area and the entire rail yards. There's so much more, and this goes far beyond soccer, as we know, and I'm excited just talking about it.
Ben Gumpert with us. Last thing for you, buddy. Take us through as much as you can. Take us through now and later this year, springtime-ish, when we see the Republic back on the pitch.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a huge MLS focus, as we talked about. Continue to work with our investors, the commissioner and the commissioner's office in New York and Mayor Steinberg. So that is number one. But not too far behind. There's, as we said, like, this is a time where we need to regroup, grow, continue to re-sign our players, find new ones that fit our pieces. We continue to grow an amazing staff at the Republic, something I am incredibly proud of and humbled by the people that I get to work with. We need to continue to build a better stadium experience at Papa Murphy's Park. We can talk about the rail yards and the vision there, but we know that next year and the year after we're playing at Papa Murphy's Park. Let's make that a spectacular soccer venue. We're investing tons of dollars in there to really make it into an experience that we can all love and enjoy, and building on the amazing energy that's been there every night since we opened. And so that's our focus. Not a day to sleep. No rest for the weary. Let's go get them.
Ben Gumpert using 3 catchphrases, and you chained those so well, dude.
Sometimes you just gotta throw them all together.
Into one super catchphrase. That is awesome, Ben.
Right. It's like last but not least, I never use cliches.
At the end of the day.
Right. At the end of the day.
As the president of your Sac Republic, along with Mr. Kevin Nagel and the whole group there, they got a big winter planned, and hopefully we'll be landing something huge for the city of Sacramento. In addition to that, great year for the Sac Republic despite the ending, and onward and upward next season. Ben, always appreciate your time, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Onward Republic.
Onward Republic. Take care. That's Ben Gumpert. He just chained those, man. That was amazing. That was amazing work. We'll take a break. When we come back, we've got What's on Tap, NostraDumbass, and we'll see what we can get into. We don't have a lot of time. We're going to have to be really quick right here on The Drive, Sports 1140 KHTK. All right, What's on Tap? The Sacramento Kings are on tap. They're in action tonight at Golden One Center versus the Washington Wizards. Pregame at 6:30, tip-off at 7. Right here on the Sporty 1140. Major League Baseball, Game 3 of the World Series in Los Angeles. The Red Sox versus the hated Dodgers at Chavez Latrine. That game starts at 5:09. All right, so here's the deal. We don't have a lot of time, so it's going to be a truncated, if you will, a truncated NostraDumbass. As we've
also got one more $50 gift card to give away. We'll do that at the end of the segment.
Do that at the end of the segment. All right, very good. We will start out, Kyle, 49ers at the Arizona Cardinals. 49ers are a road favorite in this one. I don't buy it.
Yeah, favored by like a point. Yeah. I think it opened at a pick'em, so that just means money's coming in on the Niners.
1.5. I don't buy it. 21-17, the Cardinals win. How about let's put David Johnson in the end zone, give Larry Fitzgerald another one, and some random guy another one as well. But I'm going to go 21-14 Cardinals on this one.
I actually have the Niners ending their losing streak because they so outplayed the Cardinals last time. Just the turnovers killed them. I think they cleaned those up at least a little bit, enough to win. I think the 49ers beat the Cardinals 23-20. Give me a Raheem Mostert touchdown.
Okay. What's a more difficult? This is another difficult game. The 2-5 Colts and the 1-5 Raiders. That is in Oakland. It's been a very tumultuous week for Oakland in the locker room with the Derek Carr stuff, the Amari Cooper trade. Indianapolis favored by 3. Kyle, I'm really tempted to take the Raiders here in one of those nobody believes in us. Everybody hates us. Everybody thinks we suck. We're going to show everybody in front of our fans. In fact, I just kind of talked myself into it. There's no real logical reason for me to take the Raiders over the Colts, but I'm going to. I'm going to say Raiders 35, Colts 31.
Okay. I'm with you on the reasoning. Nobody believes in us. Everybody thinks we suck. The problem is their coach also thinks that, and the players know it. I've got the Colts going in there. They're playing really well right now. I have them beating the Raiders 38-20.
All right, and then finally the pick'em game, Saints-Vikings. That is your Sunday night game. Saints 5-1, Vikings 4-2. This is in Minnesota. I think the Vikings take this one. I think it'll be a good game, but I do think the Vikings win this one. They just have a better defense. I'm going to go 35-28 Vikings.
I'm picking Chiefs-Broncos. I think the Chiefs are going to get a little revenge for almost losing to the Broncos in Denver. The Chiefs go in and at home beat the Broncos 31-10 behind 4 Pat Mahomes touchdowns.
You have a giveaway.
Yeah, I sure do. $50 gift card to Island's Fine Burgers and Drinks. Fifth caller gets that $50 gift card. Try out Islands Roseville across from Sunsplash Water Park on the corner of Taylor and Roseville Parkway, and Islands Folsom located on Iron Point Road in front of Best Buy. All KHTK giveaways are powered by RosevilleAutomall.com.
All right, 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. Good week this week.
Yeah, I thought we did a really below average job, which is good for us.
2/3 of us did a below average job.
Great point. Really great point.
Somebody did an excellent job, and that's Eunice. We appreciate
Meanus?
her. Nope, not Meanus, not Arnis. Eunice. She did a phenomenal job. All those clips you see all week long that we put out on Twitter and social media. That's Eunice, who is Kyle's friend.
Me and Eunice are besties.
I'm just happy I got a wave today.
Yeah.
For all our guests via the Fire Wings hotline, I am Carmichael Dave. For Kyle Madson, for Eunice, and all of you, we will see you Monday. Have a great and safe weekend. Jim Rome is next. Bye-bye now.